Okay. We'll pick up where we left off. Did you catch the name of the prosecutors, the assistant U.S. attorneys?
I believe the name of the main one was Kyle Rushbaum. It wasn't. I'll go get back to you on that. That was what I
Okay.
had heard.
So now I know he entered a plea of not guilty, but he didn't stop there, as I've seen some of the reporting.
Correct, and that was. He went on to say that he is in his words, a kidnapped president. He is the president of Venezuela. I have. Let me just take out my notes for some of his direct statements. Um, uh, so both he said, I am innocent. I am not guilty of anything. Sorry, I have the full quote, just pulling it out here. I am not guilty of anything that is mentioned here. His wife gave very similar remarks. She started out by saying, I'm the first lady of the Republic of Venezuela. She said, not guilty and completely innocent. When Nicolas Maduro was called upon to give his name, as I was saying a little bit earlier, he went further. That was when he said, "I am a kidnapped president," and that was when there was a little bit of an exchange between him and the man seated in the gallery.
Did Judge Hellerstein set any future, not trial date, but status hearing dates, motions, hearings, deadlines, anything like that yet?
March 17th will be the next status conference. And I expect we'll find out more about defense strategy at that time. The only two things that we heard from defense counsel is that they are going to challenge the legality of the raid. They have requested medical attention for both Mr. Maduro and Celia Flores. And according to Ms. Flores's attorney, uh, she may have, according to him, fractured or severely bruised her rib during the raid. So we'll hear more about any kind of medical condition that may or may not be the case. And that's all we know right now about the future of it. More will emerge on March 17th when the next hearing has been set.
And I assume the topic of bond or pretrial detention was discussed.
It was discussed, but it was not sought at this time. Both Maduro and Celia Flores, through their attorneys, did not request bond at this time, but they reserve the right to make an application in the future. And Judge Hellerstein said the door was open should they decide to make that application.
So both defendants remain detained pending the March 17th status hearing.
That is correct.
Okay. So let's turn to Judge Hellerstein if we can keep this connection up and running. Um, Judge Hellerstein, Alvin Hellerstein's name may be familiar to some of our viewers because, he's been in the news a good bit over the course of the last few years dealing with multiple Trump related cases. So can you talk a little bit about Judge Hellerstein and why we know that name?
Absolutely. Now, Judge Hellerstein is presiding over the broader conspiracy in this case. He also presided over a case regarding Trump's invocation of the Alien Enemies Act. And if that's familiar to viewers now, that is the statute that Trump invoked in March of last year to whisk away more than 500 men to Seacot prison in El Salvador. Judge Hellerstein had blocked the invocation of the Alien Enemies Act with regard to the plaintiffs in his courtroom in an excoriating way, saying that it is against the spirit of what the framers believed when they talked about the pursuit of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That he said that there was no invasion by Tren de Aragua, the Venezuelan gang that the Trump administration has claimed was effectively an arm of the Venezuelan state. And he said he found at the time against the claim that there was such an invasion. And this case could be a reckoning on those allegations. Now, folks might remember there was some reporting that the intelligence community, U.S. intelligence community, assessed that Tren de Aragua, the Venezuelan gang, was not an arm of the Venezuelan state. Here, one of the co-defendants in this case is the leader of Tren de Aragua. So these are allegations that will be aired in federal court. And it might go to Trump's broader uh, immigration agenda that's going to be given a public airing due to the nature of this case, due to the allegations here. And it's before a judge who has a record of treating them with skepticism and rejecting them in a very prominent case last May.
Yeah, Judge Hellerstein didn't pull any punches in his criticism of and ruling against the Trump administration in that alien enemies case. And he clearly said these Venezuelan migrants enjoy due process protections. And so shifting gears a little bit, we also know of Judge Hellerstein because, interestingly, of a state court prosecution of Donald Trump, the case in which he was convicted of 34 felony counts by Alvin Bragg's prosecutors. And can you just bring the viewers up to speed about why we know Judge Hellerstein's name in connection with that state court prosecution?
Because Judge Hellerstein was the judge who was called upon to uh, to adjudicate Trump's bid to remove the state charges to federal court. Judge Hellerstein rejected that. Judge Hellerstein has a very long history in that and other cases of being skeptical and pushing back to power. I believe he is a judge who ordered the release of Abu Ghraib torture videos. He is a judge who has defended, as I recall, the First Amendment rights of Michael Cohen when Trump tried to stop him, tried to order him, where Trump's DOJ, excuse me, tried to order him back to prison after word came out that he was writing a book. So Judge Hellerstein is a judge who is known to hold the government's feet to the fire across a number of administrations. And he has been on the bench a long time. He's 92 years old and and a very strong judge.
Yeah, and that was the last one I was going to bring up. I mean, it is unusual in my experience as a career federal prosecutor to have a defendant successfully petition a court for a writ of habeas corpus, the great writ, which basically is a judge commanding the government bring the body of the prisoner to me, bring him or her into my courtroom, and I will determine whether the United States government is unconstitutionally jailing, detaining, confining the prisoner. And indeed, he found in favor of Michael Cohen on his petition for a writ of habeas corpus and ordered the Trump administration to release him, finding that he was being detained, punished in essence, because he was intending to exercise his First Amendment free speech rights. I mean, I just want people to get a sense of how unusual, not unprecedented, but how unusual that is. Now, we've heard a lot about the writ of habeas corpus recently in connection with wrongful detentions, attempted wrongful deportations, but Judge Hellerstein don't play. And I think you're right, Adam. He's going to hold the government's feet to the fire, whether it's an administration headed up by a Democrat president, a Republican president. He enforces the rule of law truly without fear or favor, which is what we need of a judge. And at age 92, he's been on the bench for decades, and he's been doing it a very long time. I think it's fair to say he's well regarded, even revered, I think, in some circles.
Right. Absolutely. And you mentioned habeas case, the Great Brit. That Alien Enemies Act case was a habeas corpus case, and it was the rights of more than 200 men sent to what he described as a notoriously evil prison, the Terrorism Confinement Center, CCOP, in El Salvador. So this is a judge with a long pedigree of cases like that. and very tenacious, powerfully worded rulings against the government.
And just to wrap up here, I know you said that Maduro's attorneys raised the fact that they would be challenging his seizure and the legality of the operation that took him into custody. They didn't hint at any other potential defenses that they might raise or complaints that they might have. I mean, when I heard of the connection, the attorney connection to the former president of Honduras, whom Donald Trump pardoned. I'm telling you, the old prosecutor in me says, well, it feels a little selective when you're
Yeah.
going after the president of one country for, sending cocaine to the United States, and you're pardoning the president of another country who sent, by and large, equally enormous quantities of cocaine to the United States. Feels a little selective ish, not necessarily giving rise to a successful selective prosecution defense. But, there's so much we could talk about that I think will be ripe for defense attorneys to raise in challenging this prosecution by the Trump administration.
Right. So I expect that there will be other motions to report down the road. I don't know if a selective or vindictive prosecution motion will be mentioned. That wasn't mentioned today. Today was a pretty pro forma alerting Mr. Maduro and Ms. Flores of their rights and entering their pleas. There was a little bit of scheduling matters. We got that March 17th date on the calendar, and Judge Hellerstein had mentioned that he sees his job and ambition that Maduro gets a fair trial. So we'll find out whether the fact of the Hernandez case comes up over the course of litigation. This is a case that began the original indictment of Maduro, was reached in the year 2020. We are now on another superseding indictment that might complicate matters if they want to run that sort of argument. But I will certainly be back here on March 17th to see what other motions might come to the forefront.
And let me just plant a seed for our viewers. Even before that, you're going to be back in another consequential hearing, this time in Tennessee, I believe, on January 28th for the ongoing litigation of the vindictive prosecution motion to dismiss from Abrego Garcia. Is that right?
That is the plan, although I have to say, Glenn, apparently just some minutes before we went on, the government is requesting a stay of all deadlines. So we shall see what happens. According to their filing, the defense doesn't oppose. I will say this, if the proceeding happens, I will be there.
I will be interested to see what Judge Waverly Crenshaw in the Middle District of Tennessee does with a DOJ request to, put a stop to all of this temporarily. But if the defense doesn't oppose, that's an indication that the judge may be receptive to a delay. But listen, as always, thank you for covering these proceedings, giving us both the color commentary from outside the courtroom and obviously inside the courtroom, and remind people where and how they can find you.
Thank you so much, Glenn. You can find me on All Rise News. If you subscribe at the top of the screen, you can get alerts whenever I have breaking coverage and conversations like this, and get the archive of the videos and my reporting. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Adam. Thanks for being with us. Thanks, everybody. I'll see you later tonight.